This is an episode of a series called Dreams of Safety. We've had many apparently unthinkable breaks from normality in the very recent past, and with each one there seemed a great yearning from many people to go back. Why? Some of the reasons may be obvious, but it also seems clear that a simple return is impossible, and in other ways should be undesirable. Are we even sure what we want to go back to? What does safety look like when everyday realities seem to have been ruptured? At least that's the starting point. Right at the start of Cormac McCarthy's post-apocalyptic father and son survival novel, The Road, the unnamed father character wakes up from a dream of a strange creature by the side of a pool of water. The creature is foreboding and described in terms that makes it seem like a statue. Here's a quote. "Deep stone flues where the water dripped and sang, tolling in the silence the minutes of the earth and the hours and the days of it, and the years without cease, until they stood in a great stone room where lay a black and ancient lake, and on the far shore a creature that raised its dripping mouth from the rimstone pool and stared into the light with eyes dead white and sightless as the eggs of spiders. It swung its head low over the water as if to take the scent of what it could not see. Crouching there pale and naked and translucent, its alabaster bones cast up in shadow on the rocks behind it, its bowels, its beating heart, the brain that pulsed in a dull glass bell. It swung its head from side to side and then gave out a low moan, and turned and lurched away and loped soundlessly into the dark." As well as ominous, this creature is distant and unreachable, and it doesn't seem to detect the character's presence. It's unclear what this creature means, and there's no other imagery like this in the rest of the book. Does it represent whatever event caused the societal and environmental breakdown that the characters have survived? Is it a symbol of mutated, damaged nature? Or is it there at the start of the book to suggest an apocalyptic, Old Testament-style beast slouching through the man's subconscious? Lots of horrific images and stories came out of India during 2020. I wanted to speak to Arushee, partly because she was living in Delhi at that time, but also because of her job.
My name is Arushee, and I recently moved back to London in 2021. That was almost 1 year now. And until November, I was working with Madame Tussauds in New Delhi and in London, making figures for them and painting the figures, basically the whole process of making the figures, from taking measurements till painting. New Delhi, where I come from, is always so crowded, and suddenly there was not a person on the street. Everybody was inside. The skies went clear suddenly. There was no pollution, no cars. It looked really beautiful. But at the same time, it was very scary for all of us, I'm sure. And I mean, being at home, of course, the thought of losing your job and things like that. But at the same time, I think we also, as a family, also thought that we were quite lucky and privileged, because whatever salaries we were still getting, and we were able to enjoy ourselves by making amazing meals. Like, we were cooking every day, and sometimes feeling guilty when there were so many people who were probably on the streets and had no money to eat, and like their lives were completely ruined. So there were also times when we felt quite guilty about being able to afford everything that we were able to do at that time. I had to go to work maybe once a week because the wax figures had to be maintained. They get covered with fungus, and the temperatures had to be maintained because, of course, India is a very Delhi during summers is really hot. It goes up to 50 degrees. And because there was no one at the attraction, we had to see that the temperatures are maintained. It was actually very difficult to get to work as well. We had to get like passes from the police to say that we are essential workers, whatever. And there were times when the police had to pick up one of our employees and drop him back so that he doesn't go anywhere else. So it was really strict initially. The police was everywhere, and we had these passes on our cars windscreen, to say that we're essential workers. But yeah, just to check the figure so that if the ACs stop working, the wax would get, it doesn't melt, but it gets really soft and starts to D-shape. So yeah, that's why I had to go once a week at least. But otherwise, yeah, we were just home. I did not step out for 8 months. All the laborers, all the migrant workers were had to go, because they decided to go to their own homes. They literally had to walk miles and miles because there was no transport as well. Everything was shut down. You could see all the people who were migrating to other places on the highways and around those areas, but otherwise not a soul on the street. No. The disparity is too much in India. I think the rich is, I don't know about India, I think it's everywhere. The rich is really rich and the poor is really poor. And in a way, we both had to start our lives again, career wise. So we thought if we really have to work that hard, it's better to move to a country where we wanted to move since so long and just put all our efforts in that place. Also, I mean, as a country after COVID, I think a lot of our generation understood that India is actually, I'm sorry to say, but it's actually going backwards. I mean, it's it's really difficult to be in that place every day. If you look at the second wave of COVID that happened in India, I know a lot of young people personally, my college mate and my school classmate, both 33 years old, died during COVID. And these are not just the two examples. We know more young people who lost their lives during the second wave because there was no oxygen at all in the hospitals. Um, there were no beds in the hospitals. There was nothing. Like the injections that were being sold were one injection for 100,000 rupees. That's £1,000 approximately. There was no support from the government. People were literally, one of my friends' uncle passed away outside the hospital, sitting and waiting to get a bed. And because of lack of oxygen, he just passed away in his car. So when you see things like this happening in a country as big as India, of course, that's also the problem. Our population is massive. So when we see such things, it feels really sad to, to be in that place. So yeah, these were the reasons that really brought us out of that situation. And, we decided that it's probably better and hopefully better that we move out of this. And it's not just me, it's not just us who have taken this decision. I know so many people. And after moving here, we used to get calls literally every day from our friends and acquaintances to ask how we moved out and what's the process. And because so many people want to move out of India now, probably, yeah, I mean, the future seems very strange, not just because of COVID, a lot of things that are happening in India right now.
I kept thinking about this journey Arushee was taking from her house, across an empty city and into her place of work, full of softening and possibly mouldering sculptures of wealthy celebrities. There's an anti-capitalist metaphor in there somewhere, I'm sure. What a strange routine. And yet it was routine, at least for a while. In the apocalyptic fictional world of The Road, the characters travel back and forth across a ruined landscape, in which danger lurks around them unseen, and a strange, slow-moving creature haunts the man's dreams. Arushee had to routinely cross an abandoned city to care for inanimate sculptures, whilst millions of people struggled to travel home or access healthcare. In one story, the beast is waiting to pounce. In the other, part of the danger is stasis itself, the inability or unwillingness of those with power to act. a feature of the pandemic, not unique to India. At the time, many described parts of the COVID-19 pandemic as apocalyptic, but I'm not really sure about this. In a traditional Christian sense, an apocalypse, or the apocalypse, is supposed to be a revelation of the truth behind a reality which turns out to have been an illusion. It implies a degree of learning. Is this what we experienced?